We are Southern Illinois. It's time for Saluki basketball.
Arion is hit, attacks him all the way to the rack, high off the glass for two. Jalen Haynes and SIU, they've come back. At least they've got the single digits. It's down to 9.
Now, here is the voice of the Salukis, Luke Martin.
Hope everybody is staying safe and preparing for this winter storm that's about to come through the Midwest, Southern Illinois, and it feels like everywhere across the Missouri Valley Conference as the schedule has been impacted. As we welcome you in again to the Saluki Radio Basketball Podcast. With the Hall of Famer Ronnie Watson, I am Luke Martin. Evansville head coach David Ragland stops on by here on the podcast to talk about the Purple Aces and the Salukis here on Sunday at 3 o'clock in the Ford Center. We know that this game, it will be warm, we hope, on the inside. Coach Watson, it's going to be crazy in terms of the weather. At least it's what it looks like. We're recording this here on early Friday. This will come out on Friday night, so it'll be right before this storm comes through. Hopefully it's not as bad. Hopefully we all look back on it and laugh at us mentioning the weather of how it could look. But it looks like it could be a little dangerous this weekend. But, hey, it's a home game for you. So, I mean, like, I'm jealous. You know, your drive is going to be easy on Sunday.
Put it in four-wheel drive, baby, and get in the back of my truck. We will get there.
Yes. Hopefully it will be just fine come Sunday. But, well, SIU again on the road against Valpo and came up short. 69-63 was the final, and we dived into it with Coach Nagy on the postgame show of the start of the game. And I don't want to belabor that too much here on our podcast, but clearly – the first half against Valpo, Coach Watson, that was the worst first half that Southern has had all year. And I say that in wanting to begin here, though, what I didn't feel I did a good job of in our broadcast was really describing the physicality that Valpo played with and that Coach Powell and his group really brought to the game from the get-go on Wednesday at Valpo. To me, that's really where it should start. We can pinpoint things and say, well, SIU probably could have done this or that better, and I think all of that is fair, but it should start and end with Valpo brought the fight on Wednesday night, and they made every catch, every dribble handoff. I mean, it was clear from the get-go. I mean, there was a reason that SIU struggled to make good passes in the game. It was because Valpo was immensely physical from the jump.
And I will say this again in appreciation that Coach Nagy allows us, me in particular, especially on the road when I'm around the team, to come in and watch film, listen to their game plan. And trust me, it was highly talked about. And the players, I mean, it's not like, oh, the players didn't know they're going to be physical. They absolutely knew it. They've been watching on film. Coaches would talk about it in the scouting report stuff, but it was definitely discussed at 10:15. And trust me, the way that scouting report was delivered again for about the third or fourth time in a 2-day prep, it's not about that it caught them off guard. But here's what happened in my eyes. And I was nervous in knowing the game plan. There was going to be one key part that allowed one team to be extremely physical and the other team wasn't as much as they had to be. And I think we know the difference in teams. So where did the physicality really show up? It didn't show up in the restriction arc. That's not where it necessarily shows up. It does show up on rebounding, and Southern was terrific in offensive rebound for 40 minutes, okay? But where it showed up from the first possession to when McNair was just torching SIU in the first half with 15 of his 17 points in the first half, Barnes, who averaged less than 2 points a game, a guy that came in highly touted from big programs, he ends up getting 8 for the game, 8 in the first half. It was the fact that Valpo was running their offense on the arc, okay? So after an entry pass, a reversal through the big, and I said it, I was really concerned when I knew that was going to be the game plan, where Southern was more concerned about the pass on the back cut than they were on pressuring the ball everywhere on the floor. That allowed easy ball reversal and instant dives out of the bigs, which created open gaps inside the arc. And on the first ball reversal, in most instances, the ball was going inside the arc, especially in the top of the key area. Where did that lead McNair? McNair found himself the recipient when the defense goes from ball side to help side. back to when the ball comes middle and you're back in a shifting position, McNair then had the opportunity to slide in open spots and shoot more uncontested shots than what Southern would have liked. That's one example, and it's the big part. On the flip side, there was no one playing off of Southern. All 5 guys, they were on them. So therefore, where did Southern run their offense? Southern run their offense a step or two above the arc for anywhere from the entry pass all the way to a ball reversal, second, third passes, and it made it so much tougher. Here's an interesting part about how the game played out, okay? The game played out this way, and there were a lot of things happening. Southern down 39-20, say, the game was over then. No, it was not over, and it's never over, especially with this Saluki team. But what created such a big gap is this. Both teams made 21 field goals. Both teams shot 30 free throws, okay? Now, what's the big deal? Well, of the 21 field goals made, Valpo made 4 more threes than Southern. Again, a number that plays out when Southern makes under 5 threes. We know we're not a great three-point shooting team, but when they make under 5, it's a real problem for SIU. So there are 4 extra points of the 21 made field goals that Valpo got. The one that it hurts, man, and it hurts is when we see Southern and they're very capable, just like they did in their last game. They go 17-20 from the free throw line. I'm not asking for 70 or 80% on the season. That's unrealistic. I am asking for 70% in every game, okay? Especially with a team that's a skill that is incredibly important. Southern goes 18-30. Valpo goes 20. Valpo doesn't shoot great free throws, and they're a good free throw shooting team. How many points does 4 and 2 come out to? Comes out to 6. What's the deficit in the game? 69-63. Is it that simple? Does it look? It's still an L. I get that. I'm not saying that we're that close, even though I'm saying we're that close. But the reality is, you can't outthink yourself on the defensive end. You've got to keep putting pressure on people. You cannot play 4-on-5, trying to be tricky, taking away the phantom ghost that's not there. Now, when it happens, you start getting beat on back cuts, you can always adjust stuff. But man, that was an area that really showed up in the physicality. When Southern's playing 5-on-4 on one end and Valpo's playing 5-on-5 on the other end, don't be surprised that the one team is going to be more physical.
And you look in the game as well. And by the way, you brought up obviously free throw shooting. When you look in the NCAA this year, there is only one team that is shooting 80%. And that is St. Mary's. St. Mary's, obviously a really good program. They're shooting right about 81% as a team. And by the way, they've almost attempted 478 free throws on the year. That is very impressive as a team. But the 80% mark is really, as a team, is just too high in terms of saying that should be the expectation. But back to the point of what, we were talking about, Coach Watson, of you look at what Valpo had been doing, not necessarily totally on the year, but what they had been doing in the previous 5 games heading into the SIU game. They were the hottest shooting team from 3 in the Valley. When you look at what they were shooting almost 43% from 3 in their last 5 games heading in to the game in the Arc. And that's where we're Justice McNair. You get some guys some open looks. Maybe overall in totality on the year, those are some shots in a way you can live with. But in the recent 5-game stretch, Valpo has shown, man, that they are the best three-point shooting team. When they get those looks, you can ill afford for them to have open looks.
Deese and Whitaker are their best three-point shooters, both shooting over 40%. Whitaker goes 1 for 1 in this game. Owen Deese was 0 for 2. On one hand, you can say, and it's legit, Southern did a nice job on their starters. It was the bench that came in the first half that really changed the game around. But on the flip side of that is what I alluded to this, and one, I'm partial to guys that I know, and Owen Deese did a beautiful job with the game. Here's a guy that's leading them in scoring, one of the leading scorers in the conference right now, 6'7", He looks slender, but golly, is he sneaky strong and sneaky tough with his ability to handle the basketball in contact, in the lane, get to the free throw line. End up with only 6 points in this game. And my point is, he was fine with winning the game. And man, when you see guys that are leading scorers not begging for the ball, his body language had everything to say, it's way more important that Valpo wins this game than I score my average of 20 points in this game. He has nothing that to me is a tremendous culture that's going on. And I think it also explains, maybe a small sample size, why Valpo, the 2 times we've seen him play, by the way, both times McNair was significant in wins against Southern, 14 the year before at the Banterra Center, 17 in this game. But it says to me that Roger Powell's working really hard in understanding this era, that you got to stay with your guys. You got to keep not only preaching the message, as he is an ordained minister, but really believing that that's the part of the winning fabric that gets you to where you want to be in March.
And SIU, for the most part this year, when you look at bench production allowed, so how much does a team's bench hurt you? They've been one of the middle of the pack in the league. So that was, 33 points is what Valpo had from their bench in the first half, 33 of their 39, I believe. And Southern only had 2 bench points. And obviously it is clear and glaring and need to make sure we make this mark when we talk about Southern's bench. It's not the same bench as it was in November, December, in terms of course, Kelron House being out, Isaiah Stafford being out, Jalen Haynes going from your bench to now being a starter. We get that. And that is very clear and obvious. But I think what's also clear and obvious too, Coach Watson, that there are still guys who can really help SIU from the bench, even with Jalen Haynes in a recent starting role. And that's where, those frustrations have come in of pinpoint, tip your cap. Yes, Valpo did a great job, but man, being outscored, Southern's bench is not in the position where you get outscored 33-2 and a half. SIU's bench is much better than what they showed, even with it being changed and guys flipping their roles.
With the current state of affairs, with a couple injuries, that's part of the game, man. I mean, we talk about all the time, it's a great equalizer. Unfortunately, it's hurting Southern. It's putting us below the equal part of it. Doesn't matter. Nobody's feeling sorry for anybody in this thing. Just like we're not going to feel sorry for Evansville if Turnbull plays or not. But here's the reality of the bench. One, it's not like all of a sudden you're getting a chance, because Southern's used their bench from October on. So that's not well, you know what? I just didn't get the rip, so I'm not really ready. No, forget that, man. You've gotten rips since you stepped on campus. And Southern's not making, these young guys are not making that excuse. So don't interpret what I've said that there's excuses going on. They're not. Okay. And I guess that's my point to you. Now, with the reality, with 4 guys on the bench, you're getting starter minutes now. Okay. Everybody wants to start. Everybody wants to play in college. Trust me. I've done this long enough as an assistant and a head coach. Everybody that puts a uniform on wants to get in the game, no matter what they say to you in the recruiting process or the day they come in your office wanting to walk on. Everybody wants to play. Everybody's getting that chance. Now you've got to step up. Caden Hawkins, we've talked about his value. And does he have to be a 10-point scorer off the bench? Not saying that. He's got to handle the ball. He's got to get us in our offense. He's got to guard dudes. He's got to give starter minutes in the things he does well, whether it's Max or Jorge or Davion. Regardless of what's happened yesterday, a month ago, or whatever, in this game Sunday, man, you've got to give us starter production. The potential things out, it's starter production, getting back to a point we would say a lot. So if the game's on Saturday, we tell as coaches and players, there's no reason to cry on Saturday if you're not crying on Friday. And so if you're not having a conversation with your teammates, your coaches, and having conversation, not gripe like, I need this, I deserve this, the ball's got to be in my hands. Hey, man, forget that talk. It's about coach says it all the time. Don't tell me why. I love it when he says, he's right on. I don't want to hear why I'm not getting a shot. I want to know what I can do coming off that bench to get us buckets, to help my teammates get a basket. That's the conversation that we're all talking about right now. I don't care if it's November, June, it's certainly the end of January, going all the way through the end of the season. That's, in my opinion, I think that's what coach is saying. Don't tell me, hey, why aren't I getting buckets? Why aren't I getting a chance? I don't want to hear that. Tell me, what can I do better to help this bench score better?
Well, to kind of further that point from SIU's bench, when you go in non-conference games, when you just include the non-conference portion of the schedule, Salukis were second in the Valley in terms of bench production. They were averaging right around 30 points per game from their bench, only behind Murray State, who was averaging 37.9, so 38 points per game. Let's flip it. When you go to in-conference, Salukis already down the ninth in bench production right now from their bench. And like you said, Coach Watts, it's not all, points is not always the indicator of how quality your bench is. So, and that is what the stat I'm reading. It's how many points you're getting from your bench. So it's not the quote unquote quality of the bench. So I get that point. Want to make sure I have that. But you go from almost averaging 30 points per game from your bench to now just a little bit above 19. The only teams that are behind you in league play are Evansville and UNI. The teams that are at the top, best bench production right now in the league, UIC has really had that surge. Momo's been a big part of that. Obviously, Ahmad Henderson as well. And Murray State still getting not as much as they did in non-conference, but they're getting 30 points from their bench in league play. And you look at the teams at the top, UIC, Murray, those have been some of the hotter teams as of recently. I know Murray just came off their first loss of Valley play, and we'll get into that in a moment. But that's where, like we've said, if SIU wants to try to ride this ship here, which they are more than capable of doing, and they have shown, a big piece of it is figuring out the rotations and figuring out when guys can come in and out of these games is going to be such a crucial part of it.
Southern's numbers have changed when Jalen gets to the starting lineup. Look, Jalen's a starter, man.
Yeah.
I mean, but is it great to have him, the luxury of him coming off the bench? Well, then ask Valpole about McNair. You think McNair's family saying he's not a starter? I guarantee you they are. I mean, I would think it's like, hey, man, you're starting a freshman over this guy. Well, that's Roger Powell's decision, not any of us, not McNair's family. But the reality is, yeah, that's what happens. I mean, again, NBA guys, I watch more than I probably ever dreamed I would. And there's plenty of dudes coming off the bench. TJ McConnell would be one. He'd start for a lot of teams in the NBA, but his role's different. Roles are what they are. But all that said, back to the bench and kind of maybe putting a bow on that part of it is, look, Southern's got half the season left in conference play. You got the third season coming up in March. Let's get this thing figured out. What can I do to help us score, to help us rebound, to help us defend better, to help us get steals, to help us do all these things, all the intangibles, to get on the floor, to get loose balls, to get our crowd jacked up, or to put their crowd back in their seats. What can I do off this bench or as a starter, whatever your role is, to get this thing to what we signed up for when we came here in June?
Yes, as SIU again drops their fourth in a row here on the season, still with those two Valley wins. They got them back-to-back. We were able to stack up wins against Valpo on New Year's Day and then Belmont ultimately later on that weekend, and then hit this little skid. But again, we're almost at the halfway point. We'll hit that halfway point on Sunday. And next week, too, Saluki Athletic Director Tim Linner will join us. We'll have a conversation for him just to kind of recap the first half of league play for SIU and look towards the second half of this thing, Coach Watson. One of the areas I do want to touch up on as we get into the league and kind of put the bow on the Valpo game and look ahead to this weekend with Evansville and the league as a whole. One of the really cool tools that you can use, Bartorvik, who we brought up a lot, Bartorvik.com is where you can go. It's spelled B-A-R-R, should say actually BARTTORVIK.com. And one of the tools you can use is you could say who you can change your dates on your stats to where you could say, okay, who was the best team in the country last week analytically? Who was the best team from November to December, but also who's the best team since the start of January? And you can look up in time range and see really how good teams have played. And when you look at the Missouri Valley Conference, and I do use the Belmont game as the kind of the pinpoint for Southern. So I do the day after the Belmont game. It does not include the win against Belmont for SIU. Who is the best team in the league, just analytically speaking, when you look at the data? It's UIC. And not only are they leading the league right now, Rocco Miller did a great job of putting this out there as well on his Twitter. They're 40th in the country in the metrics right now. And we were touching up on this when we were going in the UIC. And I'm not doing this to try to like talk about what you and I, in terms of our point, it's more to reinforce of I had multiple people leading in the UIC game going, man, why are you saying UIC's close? Like they just look at their schedule and they go, they haven't beaten a D1 team since November. Like, why are you and Coach Watson saying, man, like, be careful for UIC? You're seeing it now. And what they've done, 5 now wins in a row. They've won their last 5, and just kind of continuing with those numbers. And a huge tip of the cap to Rob Issa and his group. I mean, what's the biggest difference is, man, they're rebounding the basketball at an elite level, one of the best in the league in doing it, which means they're getting better shots. Man, defensively too. Their effective field goal defensive percentage right now in the last 5 games out of everybody in the country, it is 7th in the country. Again, I know it's just the last 5 games, but man, when you're putting up those type of numbers within that stretch, man, just so impressed with what Coach Eson's group has done. And by the way, those 5 wins too, let's not act like those are easy 5 wins now. I mean, any stretch in our league when you win 5 in a row, that's why you have to tip your cap to Murray, the start that they got off to. But man, this is an impressive run by UIC, and you want to refrain from using phrases of, man, Coach Eson's group has totally figured it out, and they're not going to have any issues the rest of the way. There's always going to be things that pop up. I think there's no question. They know what works and what has really given them the key to success here in the last 5 games.
I appreciate you using numbers in November and December, and you and I have talked about it off the air, and you know how I feel about it, and you understand I don't get excited about numbers, but I do like the talking point because, you got to factor non-Division I games sometimes they exclude those numbers, and then there's such a wide variance on who you play and on the road, at home, and so forth. But I love when you talk about it because it gets us thinking basketball, and I really enjoy what you bring to this broadcast and to Saluki Nation with getting us thinking big picture basketball. But man, Luke, when you talk about numbers this time of year in those 5 games, those are league play numbers. Now you're not only talking apples to apples, you're talking about the same species of apple across the board. You say, oh, wait a minute. Now the Big Ten and the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12, gosh, you're comparing us with that stuff. Yeah, you are. I mean, in reality, because you're playing apple to apples. It's why we talk about scouting and the familiarity with how important scouting is at every level. Purdue scouts a different league than we scout. We scout the same way with the same intention of what we're trying to get. That's again, but what I don't appreciate, Luke, is when you send me those numbers the night before our broadcast, and then I have to sleep on it, and I sleep terribly. So I did not appreciate that text last night. But no, tip the cap to you for really informing us on the reality. And it's like when you talk about UIC, you're not saying they're an at-large bid team, and that ship's already sailed. But what you are saying, nobody wants to play them right now.
Oh, my. I mean, there is no one right now that is saying, yes, sign me up for 40 minutes against UIC and how they've been playing. Here's what's remarkable about the numbers here and why, again, there's so many different metrics and all these different sites, which, by the way, Coach Watson did not even respond to my text last night, by the way. So I'm glad he read it, but I couldn't even get a like or, hey, I'm not going to be able to sleep. So just full transparency with that.
I'm a Saluki, Luke, and when I get that kind of stuff in the middle of the night, I hit click on that deal. It's like, hey, man, I'll just find a new Netflix movie to watch. I can get that kind of drama. No, it's great. And those are great numbers. They certainly they're like the rest of us listen to this thing. It's not the numbers. We want you to be talking about us with those numbers. Unfortunately, we can't provide you with those right now. And when we can, Luke will be the first one to bring them to you.
Yeah. And here's why, like, the number is interesting. And I'll put it up on our screen too when I edit this, and just so folks can see it and have a chance to really look at it on their own. But you look at, so UIC first in the league, Valpo comes up second, even though they're 3-2. And it's like, okay, so the metrics really like what Valpo has done. And of course, that's who Southern has lost to in this stretch. of the losses for the Dogs here, 4 in this last 5-game stretch. But then you go, okay, so Southern, unfortunately, they're at the tail end of it. They're at the very bottom right now in the stretch in these 4 games. They're 11 out of 11 in the league. But Murray State, who is 3-1 in those games, they're towards the bottom half analytically. They're 150 in the country in this last 5-game stretch. They've only played 4 games as well. But it's like, here's the top half of the league. UIC, Valpo 1 and 2, Belmont right behind them at 3. Those teams are in the top 100, actually top 75 to be exact in the country during this same stretch. And then there's a gap, and then you have Illinois State who's 4th. And again, this is where it's neat to look at it. It's just data. Like, it doesn't mean like anything more than that. Who's right behind there? Indiana State. The Sycamores are 147 in the country, and they are right behind Illinois State. So in 5th. So if you're looking at, but you're like, man, they're 1 and 3. It's like, that's why it's like wins and losses matter. That's ultimately who decides who gets a championship at the end of the day. And it's going to matter come March Madness. When you get in that turn, it's all going to matter. It's not going to matter of other than who led at the end of the game and gets to continue their season. But why we try to have these type of conversations and pinpoint it out is don't look at just, there's the standings. Man, like, this league's not as good as it was as I remember. I'm telling you, it's really impressive when you dive in more and you try to research yourself on this league and where teams are really good at, and go, and it's really good for the league that UIC is playing well, that Valpo is playing well. It just, I know it's kind of more of a ramble and not really a question. It's more of a statement from me. But that's where it's just like, wow, you can go from looking at the league as a whole, and I don't think anybody would be like, I think they should be saying, yeah, you should be looking at what UIC is doing. But, man, Valpo, even teams like Indiana State who are trying to get over that hump consistently enough too, there are numbers there that show don't take those teams lightly, man, when they come up on your schedule.
You know, what I find interesting about these numbers again, Luke, is, look, let's not kid ourselves. The people listening to this are grown-ups. Legalized gambling has changed the numbers. That there's so much money out there, not only from the gambling standpoint, but there's a lot to be lost in the gambling, by the way. But the reality is, people that put numbers together, they're doing it. They're not doing it for broadcasters. They're not even really doing it for, now they're definitely not doing it for anybody but the people that are spending money on gambling. Okay. That's the reality of this thing. But here's where coaches better wake up if you're not doing it. And I'm not implying that ours aren't, or I'm not implying it to anybody. I know this, if you're not into the numbers, you better come see Luke Martin and have him educate you on your numbers, or whoever your person is that really understands the analytics of the data. Okay. Because if you know, the easy thing is, we just weren't ready to play. No, we were ready to play. And we believe the physicality of the game. And, you know, my criticism about some things, it's not about the numbers. It's, you know, you got to look at, why is a team playing physical? That has nothing to do necessarily with the data. Okay. It has style of play, but you better look at the numbers to see if these guys are serious or not, because the numbers right now in league play, like, you can get fooled in November. Boy, if you're not looking at numbers right now, whether, you know, you're coaching across the board, you are really, really ill prepared for what you're doing, because these numbers are giving you something to think about. Okay, I know on tape, the tape shows me, my eyes show me the way they play, they're physical. Okay. Now, then you got to start putting the piece together when you see the numbers. The numbers are critical, man. And you know, when I was at SIU, we had VCRs. You know, that's how we were making our determination, and some phone calls. So what we would do, in all transparency, we knew who hated each other, and a lot of the teams hated us. So there were a lot of conversation going with teams that hated our team. But we'd have a few buddies that hated some other teams too. And they say, hey, you know that Ben Johnson can't dribble with his left hand, right? And I act like, yeah, I did. Had no idea. Okay. That was our data back in the day. Now the numbers will help you solve the crime if you're willing to really dig into it, and you're crazy if you don't.
One area that is a positive for SIU in this stretch, even though, again, like we said, out of the league, Southern ranks 11th right now during this stretch, 268 overall in the country. But defensively, just the defense, third in the league. during this stretch. Southern's defense, effective field goal, defensive percentage, third in the league in that stretch. Good defensive numbers, but man, again, it's been, and Coach Nagy has not shied away from it. The offensive efficiency has been way, way down. Actually, the Salukis are top 100 when it comes to adjusted defense in that time. If you flip it to adjusted offense, Salukis are 341 in the country. Again, that's dead last in the Missouri Valley as well. That's where SIU has made some strides defensively, Coach Watson. There are areas where that is clearly shown to be a strength of the team. I don't want to make it, just got to make shots. I mean, that can be the most simplistic way to say it. We get it. But man, SIU's offense, that's no question. That's been, however you want to describe it in a better way than I'm trying to find words right now. That's been what has prevented SIU from ultimately getting over this hump in games that they're right there in the thing. I mean, we say these numbers, and amazingly, how you're one or two shots, one or two possessions away from that 0-4 record being all of a sudden, a 7-game win streak.
No question. I mean, it's a small margin. It's a round ball and a round rim. It's not an excuse, because the teams that have beat Southern this stretch, they found a way to get that round ball inside that round rim. And if you want to get overly simplistic to it,
you're an overly simplistic person.
I've tried the other stuff, and that's just gobbledygook. The bottom line is, when the ball goes into the ring, good things happen. But Southern, it's not from a lack of the things that we're alluding to. We're not saying, well, here's what we're seeing, alluding that this isn't going on in our program. That's not the case. Bottom line is, you got to find a way to get a little cleaner shot, maybe a little closer shot. Those 3-point shots, an example, again, small sample size, or kind of inexact explanation is maybe we're shooting a little too far out. Maybe it's, a little bit weird. Maybe, there's all kinds of things that you can really break down. And again, it comes back to editing. In a click of a stroke of a keypad, you can find out where you make your shots from. It's unbelievable how much information's out there. And Southern's got dudes that care, man. That's the one thing that, whether you can diagnose it with numbers, or you can just use the ear and eye test. There's no, I don't care out there. And it's hard. It's coaches should take losses the hardest. That's why God made adults. We should take things harder. We experience allows that. As much as you want your players to care. Now they got to care too. They've got to be, they have to care. And I've seen teams that didn't, and players that didn't. But you don't want players, you don't want them, they're too young to let it get into their soul like it does a coach. Okay. However, now that professional sports have hit, it's going to get more into your soul because of the greedy dollar has hit that part of it. But the reality, folks, from my eyes and my observation, being around this team, not nearly as much as Luke, this team cares.
Let's go ahead and get into the Valley scores from this past week. Again, we record our podcast before either of the games on Tuesday and Wednesday, so we'll run through them here. Just one game on Tuesday night. UIC knocked off Evansville and really dominated the game. 76-49 was the final. We'll talk to Coach Ragland. He knows it was far from his team's best performance of a team that started some good performances, even though they were in losses. But yet again, the bench for UIC was really good with Josiah Hammonds, who didn't necessarily go off against SIU, but we knew the capability that he could have. He had 10 points, along with Ahmad Henderson with 10 points off the bench. And Elijah Crawford, 7 assists to 2 turnovers since he's come back into the lineup. I don't think that's been by accident either. That UIC has been starting to play better with him in the lineup. UIC wins it again, 76-49. They were up 14 at halftime, and they win the second half by 13 to now win 5 games in a row. And the Flames have just been playing really good basketball, as we touched up on.
I come back to the 9th best league in the country, and it's made up of 11 good teams. The separation is the word separation. There's some teams starting to separate and going from being good to really good, and maybe beyond that in the next 10 games. So again, good basketball. I would love to ask these coaches, would you rather coach at a school where your fan base or your community doesn't care, or would they really care? And I know in our case, our coaches wouldn't want this any other way. But man, our community cares, our league cares, and that's what's making for very good basketball.
Go to Wednesday night, Indiana State. They led the game for 30-plus minutes against Bradley. Bradley was trailing for the majority of the game. It was a nip-and-tuck game, back and forth. But Bradley holds off Indiana State late, 75-68. Sycamores had that critical scoring drought late in the game. I'm telling you, if you haven't seen him play, you're really going to really enjoy watching Ian Scott. He is a really good player, can really score the basketball for Indiana State. He led them with 15 points. Shouldn't surprise anybody that Jaquan Johnson was huge again for Bradley. 18 points in the game. Didn't have any assists in the game, only one rebound in his 31 minutes. Was able to get to the free throw line 10 times, made 8 of them. Huberks was big when he needed to be, 13 points, and then A.J. Smith chipped in 11 points and 7 rebounds, the tie for the game high in rebounds for Bradley. In that 75-68 win, was a tough one. We had that one up. Coach Watts, as we were going on the air and watching the end of it, again, Indiana State, you look at the teams towards the bottom of this league right now, which unfortunately SIU is in that mix. Golly, it is just, it's agonizing for those teams and for their fans as well to just realize the margins are so small. It's not like the bottom of this league. I mean, I know Evansville coming off the tough one at UIC, but again, it's not like you're going on. I mean, Indiana State's been the Bradley now. They've been the Murray State. They've been to the top half of the league. The only game that they've been in the top half of the league, and it wasn't close, was at Illinois State, and that was right around the holiday break. But again, Sycamores have been knocking on that door, just haven't been able to ultimately close out a game as well.
Shot makers can keep it close, and Indiana State's got some shot makers. You keep telling me about them, and we don't talk about Wagner. I mean, golly, this is a, when you've got shot makers, you've got a chance. Just like I mentioned about Southern. I mean, it looks to me like that 5-3 made thing is it's kind of really important to us. When we get over 5, we're in a different spot, and when we're under 5, we're in a familiar spot.
Speaking of shot makers, let's head to the game that was in Des Moines between Drake and Murray State. Drake hands Murray State its first loss of the season in the Valley play as the Racers go to 8-1. 101 points in 40 minutes. They beat Drake 101-90 was the final. And how about Jalen Quinn? Listen to this stat line. 34 points, 6 rebounds, 3 steals in the game, chipped in 2 assists, did have 4 turnovers. He was 6 of 10 at the free throw line, but 34 points for him in 38 minutes. Talk about efficiency for him. 14 of 25 in the game as well from the field. But Owen Larson proved to be a major difference in the game as well. 22 points in the game for Owen Larson, 7 of 8 at the line, had 6 rebounds as well. This is to me why Drake was able to, one, stay in the game and ultimately win the game. They out-rebound Murray State 45-37. And here's what's amazing in this game. They had 7 players had 5 rebounds or more. That shows you the spread. It wasn't just one dominant presence. They got it from everybody in the game. That was a huge factor along with making shots. That's why when everyone's like, it just comes down to making shots. Man, those efforts on the board can really help, as I see your grin.
Rebounding allow you to make shots, and they allow you to take away shots from your opponents if you can do it, or it can hurt you the other way. The number that when I saw that box score the other night, then Larson's number, Jalen Quinn can do that. I mean, and I'm not saying Larson can't get 22, but you talk about Larson stepping up when the stage got pretty big in this league, and in a time when undoubtedly, Drake, if they do podcasts, they're having the same conversation we're having going in, right? Certainly before the game with SIU, but man, Larson was gigantic. Jalen Quinn, without looking at the game, I think he's really starting to figure out, look, man, I get an isolation in the right matchup. They're really smart. Henderson, as we talked about, Coach Henderson knows how to get his guys into spots where it just puts your defense at a disadvantage, and he really clears sides for him. He's good at getting it done. Again, come back for the third time in my statement. Larson was gigantic because it wasn't like the rest of Murray team didn't know that Quinn was on one, and really impressive home win for Drake.
Was the nightcap. Appreciate Fitz and Mike Matthews carrying it out again. 59-54 was the final. Illinois State beats Northern Iowa in Safeco Arena. And one thing we didn't bring up with Northern Iowa was Tristan Smith has been out during this stretch for them. When you talk about important guys through a team, look, they were 4-0 before he left. They've lost 5 in a row. We'll talk to Coach Jacobson here very shortly because they're going to be coming in the Banterra Center next week. Matter of fact, the next game that Southern will have after Evansville. So be curious to get his perspective on it. But, man, we talk about that equalizer, right, Coach Watson, of the injuries, and we'll get into it with Coach Ragland too with them and Connor Turnbull. It happens, and that's why you have to – no one's going to feel sorry for you. And because that's what Belmont's had to do, being without their point guard, Nick McClain. You can look through all the leagues, man, throughout the country, and especially in our league, you're going to find some key guys out.
Of all the guys in this league, and he's the veteran coach, Ben Jacobson's the guy I feel least sorry for, because I'm telling you, that guy understands probability, and he's very smart. He's a very smart, simplistic basketball coach. He doesn't make shots. Coach Nagy doesn't make shots. David Ragland doesn't make the shots. I mean, we know that. We know who makes shots. While his bench is not being as productive as he's got to have it to be, I have so much confidence in his ability that I just vividly remember over the last several years, it seemed like the bench had not this low of production going in, but he'd have a guy like Duax and Polk and those guys come in against Southern and get to spots on the floor and make mid-range jumpers. And I don't feel sorry for Northern Iowa because those guys are going to be fine. They're figuring themselves out because this guy knows what he's doing.
Bowden Scumberg was huge in the game. 20 points for Illinois State, 8 rebounds. He was the only one in double figures for the Illinois State Redbirds in the game. But he was big. 20 points in those 33 minutes, 6 threes. He had 6 of the 7 made threes for Illinois State in the game. Really put them on their back to win that one in Bloomington Normal. 59-54 was the final. So those were the Valley games this past week. So now the Valley standings look like this. Murray State leads the league still. They have a 1-game lead over Belmont, 8-1. Belmont and Bradley each have 7 wins, but Bradley has 1 more loss, so they're right behind them at 7-3. Illinois State, again, they've only played 9 games. They're tied in the loss column with Bradley, but they only have 6 wins right now on the year. So they're technically a half game back of Bradley. But again, Illinois State beat Bradley in their lone head-to-head at this point on the season. And then UIC, the lone team right now with 5 wins and 4 losses, 5-4 as we near the halfway mark. UNI and Drake and Valpo all tied together at 4-5. Grouped into that mix. And then you have Indiana State and SIU, each at 2-7. And then Evansville, who the Salukis will see here on Sunday at 1-8. You know the Salukis will see Evansville on Sunday. That is the lone game right now on Sunday. It was not originally supposed to be that way because of the weather that's coming through. Belmont and Illinois State got moved from Sunday to Saturday, and it's Saturday at noon in Nashville is when that game will take place. For those wondering on maybe why the schedule hasn't changed for SIU Evansville, there is hockey in the Ford Center on Friday night tonight as we record this and Saturday night as well. It's not been uncommon for them to have double headers in the Ford Center, but that's been part of the logistics of trying to tweak it from the Evansville perspective of why it's not been as simple. Well, why didn't they just move it up? There's a reason. There's other tenants in the Ford Center. Drake and Indiana State, that game will be in Terre Haute. That will also tip at noon Central Time on Saturday. Murray State, they'll stay out in the state of Iowa. They will take on Northern Iowa. Important game, no doubt, for both of those teams as the Racers will try to avoid their first losing streak in the Missouri Valley Conference. That game will tip off at 3 o'clock. And then in Peoria, it will be UIC at Bradley, a game that UIC a year ago went in the Peoria. And you remember that one? They thumped Bradley last year in Peoria. That will be a game that I'm sure UIC wants to try to make it 6 in a row. No doubt they want to try. They're going to do more than just try to make it 6 in a row. And how impressive that would be if they could pull it off on Saturday night. And then again, the lone game right now on Sunday, SIU at Evansville. That game will tip at 3 o'clock. Any of those games for you, Coach Watson, just off the dome that you're really intrigued by when you look at the league schedule? I know every day we're intrigued by all of them, but is there one for you that moves the needle a little bit more as you're looking at this race as we near the halfway point?
No, not necessarily. I mean, they're all interesting, but the one thing that's on my mind right now, something we haven't even talked about, but I think this is a real factor, and I think we're going to find out somewhere because this storm has such an impact throughout the country. What about the officials get to the game?
Yeah.
It's, we talk about how many games these guys do. Southern's already, because of whatever reason, has had a change in one of the crew members. That one came off, another going on. But that still doesn't matter. I mean, these guys are doing Saturday. I mean, they're working successive games in a row. I mean, I watched the OVC play last night. Several Valley officials were on those games. You're talking about some significant stow in our region. But what about guys that are like? You think about this. You're doing a game. Typically, if you're doing a game, let's say you're doing Belmont on Saturday. Well, it's easy to get to Evansville. It's an easy under 3-hour drive to get to Evansville, except for when there's an ice storm. And then, so my point about all this thing with the games, it's one thing, but this weather is going to have an interesting effect. And the other part that I don't understand, I've got complete access to decision makers on this. Let's play it at the Liberty Arena at US Ice campus. They moved their game, and the OVC moved their game from Saturday to Friday. So they're playing back-to-back games Thursday, Friday. We can let it rip, man. And in the arenas, great locker rooms, beautiful seats for everybody. Everybody be accommodated.
I see you got the plug in there. You always find a way to get a plug in.
Those are my people.
I understand. And of course, and with that impact, it's not just officials that are doing Valley games. Valley officials travel across the country and work some other leagues as well. So coming and going could get very interesting. And at least right now, the Saluki, the one thing I guess, if you say it, want to be a benefit or not, be curious if some sort of travel logistics happen and see how the officials come in. That'd be fun to document this weekend. I say fun, not in terms of the treacherous road that many of them would have to travel, but definitely could be some interesting assignments that you see as you go throughout the league, and the weekend throughout the country. Just keep in mind the next games won't start till Tuesday. There is a Tuesday game. It'll be Indiana State at UIC in Chicago. Ironically, it's the further north you go up, it's actually not as bad. Now they're still going to be bitter cold, but in terms of this winter storm system that's coming in, really hitting the Midwest and the South really hard. Well, speaking of the Evansville Purple Aces, let's bring on our good friend. He is the head coach of the Aces. He's in his 4th season. That's hard to believe already. 4 years for David Ragland on the sideline at Ford Center. We'll see him on Sunday afternoon. Here's our convo with the coach, David Ragland. Yes, it's always good to talk with you. And look, I know just like the Salukis, it feels like the Aces and Salukis are looking in a mirror, and sometimes if there's games where you're so close to getting over that hump, just haven't quite gotten over it consistently enough. How would you describe the year to this point, especially since you've gotten in the league play?
Yeah, I would double down on that. There's a lot of similarities between the both of us. We both have a lot of new faces and have battled some injuries and like some inconsistency in our lineups. And it's hard to be consistent whenever there isn't a lot of consistency. In terms of first off like carryover in our roster, and then again whenever you're dealing with what both of us has dealt with throughout the year. But as I watch Southern Illinois, man, they're fighting, they're competing, they're playing hard. They have some areas that's going to be, put us in some challenging situations that we're going to have to respond to in a positive way. But again, both of our journeys have been very, very similar with the new faces and with the constant. We'll see who's available that evening to play. So don't envy Coach Nagy and his staff, but I also very similar or very um, we have the same challenges. And, at the same time, and I know Coach Nagy and his staff is a really good staff. And I know they're challenging their group and having them working. And at the end of the day, like they're getting better every single day. I mean, every game, like I said, they're in it, they're competing. They're inches away from being exactly opposite of where they're at. And that's what you want to do. You want to be competitive and you want to give yourself a chance to win, and then learn from close losses.
Coach Ragland, one of the things I think it's a big credit to you and, obviously Jevin Redmond, a really close friend of mine. I listen to a lot of your guys' conversations and the content that Jevin puts out for you guys. And man, your positive attitude, your reinforcement, that always comes through. And we were talking about with Coach Nagy the other night, kind of this part of the year can be the dog days of college basketball.
Absolutely.
And when those wins aren't necessarily coming, they can be hard to fight through it. How do you and your staff prepare your team and help your team to fight through that type of feeling? Because, man, there's a lot of teams that are going through that at this point.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think number one, it starts with the people. You have to have really good people around you. And I have a really good staff that does a really good job just preparing, breaking down the film and trying to put our players in the best position that they can, and also spending additional time with them. Like practice is not enough. You have to, spend one-on-one film time with them. You have to do skill development with them. There's just, how much of an investment are you putting into people? So it starts with the staff, then it goes to the players, and we have really good players that want to win, that want to do things right. I mean, it's not a lack of want to, it's not a lack of any of those things. It's just it hasn't clicked yet. And whenever you have good people and you walk into the building, and I was actually talking to Coach Lanson a couple of weeks ago about this, and we were talking about ways to attack practice and going through stretches like this. And he's like, Coach, man, he's like, he called me Rags. He's like, Rags, man, there's a lot of times like I'm just upset about maybe the result or how we played. And, all it takes is seeing one of the guys. And when they walk into your office and they communicate with you, and, you realize like, man, that's someone's child, and that's someone that I'm working to help mature and be a better person, and they really do care and they really want to be here. It just it touches your heart, and you just move from being upset, and a lot of it you have to block out the noise, but being upset about the results and sticking to what's most important, and that's being invested in people and getting the best out of people. And, it's funny, being in the game for 20 plus years, and, we get on the road, and some of the guys that I coached back, 20 years ago are now, fathers and husbands, and they're professionals in different fields. And, they're able to come and watch us play. And, just recently after a bad Illinois State loss, I sat down with the first person that I signed when I was at Vincennes University. And just some of the things that he said and talked about, and what he remembered, and what helped him be where he is currently, just was a reminder of what we're really in it for. And the wins and losses will fade eventually. So relationships and the impact that you're making on people, and quite frankly, our future, that's a lot more important. And as a competitor, that's hard. That's hard to, kind of, look at the results and say, look at the bigger picture. But as a, I'll say it proudly, man, as a child of God, and as a person that believes in and just positively impacting other people, man, I'm good with with who God created me to be.
David, I kind of wear our fans out about talking about the Indiana Pacers. Our son works for them, and he made a really interesting comment 2 years ago in 2024. Called me up one night and goes, Dad, I see all 28 teams come to our building because he works for them. He's there like 3 hours before the game. He's on court side. He watches every team work out. This is in 2024. He goes, I'm telling you, man, the Pistons work harder than any team that I've seen in the NBA the day of the game. And I kind of shrugged my shoulders a little bit on that.
Yeah.
And today, in getting ready to talk to you about the reality of where the Aces and the Salukis are, you work in a fan base, a community that knows championships.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear nonsense on this podcast. They don't want to hear about, oh, things are great, sun's going to shine. They don't want to hear that stuff.
Yeah.
But here's the reality with the Pistons. In 24, they finished the season 54 games under 500, dead last in the NBA.
Yeah.
Today, as we do this podcast, they lead the NBA East at 32-10 over the Celtics by 5.5, and they're only second in the NBA to Oklahoma City. The point being, all the nonsense aside that we could be talking Pollyanna today, David, what is your message to Saluki fans or certainly the Aces fans that said, look, I know where we are. I know we're 5-15, and I know you know it. But I'm telling you, this is why we're getting to where we're going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because of that, exactly what you said. Like you couldn't tell our record if you came to practice, like because of the work that we put in and the energy that we have in practice. Like our guys work extremely hard and their care factor is extremely high. And regardless of, what the wins and losses are, like we're not taking any shortcuts to what we're doing. Like we're gonna have quality people, and they're gonna give everything that they have, and they care. Like everybody that comes to UE to play here, the staff that I have, like understand the responsibility. Like I understand it. I understand the fan base. I understand the history. I understand the importance of reviving the story program. And I'm telling you, like morning, noon, and night. That's all I think about. My staff, morning, noon, and night. That's all they think about. And the group that we have, they are working their absolute tails off. And it just, I my wife and I would just finish at building a home, and I've recently compared it to that. Like, it when you're under construction, man, like there's a lot of things that go into it to make it what it's going to end up being. And at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. Like we're under construction of building the right kind of program that's going to last the test of time. Like that's what you want. Like you want to set this thing up to be able to be successful, not only while I'm here, but when the next person steps into the seat. Like I am from Evansville, and I've told people this, like as I go out and I'm trying to, communicate where we're at in collegiate sports and the importance of investment. Like I'm always going to be hugely invested in the University of Evansville as a university and as a men's basketball program, because I know the impact they can make on our community. And whether I'm sitting in the seat or not, that's always going to be the case. But I have an opportunity, just like I'm asking our fan base, to impact it in a way where it's gonna last regardless of who's sitting here. And that's where, unfortunately, we weren't in that situation when we took over as a staff, but we're building toward that consistency and that longevity of success. And right now we're just under construction of making it that. And when it's under construction, like there's messy stuff, man. Like there's a lot of, you got to embrace messy, and you got to embrace tough and hard and difficult and some things that you don't want. But as you go through those things, it's all at the end of the day completely worth it.
David, you arguably played for one of the finest shooting coaches that this game's known, certainly in this region, and Rick Curtis. And when I look at teams, I want to know what they do well, whether it's the Salukis or the Aces. When I look at your stat sheet, man, what you're doing at the free throw line is impressive. 6 of your top 8 minutes played guys are shooting over 70%, as high as in the mid-80s at a couple of them. What impact did Rick Curtis have with you on simply the technique of shooting the basketball? And secondly, how important is skill development in this era or any era that basketball is ever going to be played.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, a practice is not long enough. It's an unrequired amount of work it takes to be a really good player, and skill development is at the forefront of it. And you have to take time. You have to take time to work on your game, and you have to want to work on your game. And Coach Hurtis was really big on that. There's a lot of us that was in the pack a lot of times outside of practice, and we were fortunate enough. When I first got there, we had two coaches that played for won a national championship in '95 that were still on staff. And, they were really good mentors and coaches in terms of skill development. And we put in the time. We weren't just showing up on game night. We weren't just, checking in and logging into practice and then showing up to the games. We put extra time in every single day. But for a while in my coaching career and playing career, I've been blessed to be around a lot of really good coaches that truly value skill development and taking the time to help, like, with the um, fundamentals of the game. Going back to my high school coach and Coach Wyman, I mean, footwork and eyes to the rim and pivots and all those things, shot fakes and triple threats were always important. And, I don't care how much, how athletic guys have gotten or how strong they gotten, but those things are still important. And we work on skill development every single day. We take time out just to make sure guys are focusing on the things that can really, if you're an okay shooter, you can get to being a really good shooter. If you're a really good shooter, you can get to being a great shooter just by small mechanics. And one thing that we've really focused on here of late, is guys just setting the ball. I was at Valpo for 2 years, and Valpo had a long string of coaches that really taught, and this is their high school team, like the Valpo way of shooting free throws, and they would set the ball prior to shooting it, and it's a proven fact, man. There's less room for error if you set the ball close to where you actually shoot it. And there's a lot of players that they'll have the ball down by their waist, and then they're bringing it up, and you're adjusting the ball on the way up, and just set it and take a deep breath and shoot the ball. So our guys have done a really good job of again, just being compliant, listening to what really works. And it starts with how we play. We like to get our feet in the paint. That's been the thing since we've gotten here. That has kind of translated as we've been here. Is we play downhill. We play, for each other. We try to get advantages and keep advantages and get 2 feet in the paint, play off our pivots and shot fakes and draw fouls in a legal way. And then when you get there, they're free for a reason. It's just you in that rim, and focus, lock in, set the ball, take a deep breath, and trust your routine.
We'll get into your team in just a moment, Coach Ragland, but there's so much that's on your plate as a head coach, just even outside of the games, but even more so when you're in the battle in games. And that's why it's so important as you're going throughout a game to get really good information from your staff that can help you throughout games. And look, it's a whole staff. I get it, but Craig Snow, I know, is a huge piece of your staff and obviously a great Evansville player during his time. How important has a guy been like Craig to have for you in your corner on the sideline? And not to say he's more important than any other piece of your staff, but to what he really brings to you in the program each and every day.
No, he's been there, done that. That's a unfortunate thing about the day and age of college basketball and what we're dealing with. As we go through this year, as the Salukis go through this year, we're trying to teach young people how physical our league is, or how you know each game is a chess match. How you have to have your game plan and then a plan for that and a plan for that. And how basketball is a game of runs, and just the history and the the fan bases. I mean, I look at, Southern Illinois games, and man, just the fans, the crowds like that come out every single game. People don't understand that that's a testament to the history of the program and how passionate the fan base is. But Craig understands all that. He's been through it. He's one of the last ones of our program, of our family, of UE basketball players that went to the NCAA tournament, that won a championship, that is trying to do what that did what we are currently trying to do and what we're trying to revive. So again, he's been there, done that. He's done a really good job with breaking down the game and being able to, a lot of times as coaches, like, it's great to be able to understand the game and break down the game, but you got to be able to communicate that effectively to make sure your players can execute it. So it doesn't matter how much you know, if you can't get them to understand and execute it, then it's all for nothing. And he's done that. He was more on the defensive side before this year, and we went to we're number 2 defensive team in our league by the numbers last year, and now offensively, he's taken more of a bigger role on our offense, and we're making some jumps on the offensive end. One being us playing downhill in the paint and getting to the free throw line, like Coach Watson just said. But he again, he gets it. He's been there. He's done that. He cares, and we've made positive strides again outside of where we're at currently. And when you look at the years that we've been here, we have made a lot of strides and progress toward what we're going to be when that time comes.
Coach Ragland, it's one of those areas that we talk about constantly as well. The greatest equalizer this time of year can be sickness as well as health of your team. And the Salukis have gone through it with Isaiah Stafford and Calron House, 2 really key guys that they haven't had. And look, you've been without the defensive player in the league last year in Connor Turnbull. And that's not just a small piece, it's a massive piece for you.
Yeah.
But when you get to February, when you get to early March, there are going to be moments in games, whether it's foul trouble, et cetera, where your bench is going to get tested. There are going to be guys in different roles that you don't want them going through the first time in late February and early March.
Yeah.
Yes, you don't want to be without Connor, but how has that shifted guys in different roles, and where have you seen your team grow without him on the floor with you?
I mean, I think it's been really, really good for our group. It hasn't been good for my sleep, but it's been really good for our group to the best teacher of life is experience. And, we have 3 true freshmen. I say true freshmen. We have 3 freshmen that are playing heavy minutes, and, Leif Moeller, Bryce Cornett, and then James Dyson Murrow. But those guys are playing heavy minutes, and, we were just talking about Craig, but he knows what the league is. Those 3 freshmen now know what it is because they've been in the fire. We have 4 other guys, 2 that came from a higher level, one AJ Casey, the other one Alex Hemingway, that haven't played. I mean, they did not play all of last year because of injury. Alex had some injuries the year before. AJ kind of dealt with some. So you're talking a year and a half or so that they have not logged like real minutes, even though they're at a high level. And then Kaya Burrich and Trent Hudley are 2 guys that were on our team, but again, did not get a whole lot of playing time last year. So that's 7 guys that are playing right now that have not played significant minutes, but every time they go out, again, and as long as they're giving everything that they have, they believe they're playing like together and they're responding in the right way, they're going to continue to grow and get better. So then whenever you get into late February, early March, like, you've been there, done that. Now you're speaking to, hey, remember last time, here's what happened, good or bad. Then they have a recall to certain situations. But right now we just have 7 guys that haven't done it, that are learning a ton through experience, and Another person that's grown a lot. We were actually just talking about it the other day. Joshua Hughes, he's been there for 3 years. He remembers being those guys his freshman year. He remembers hitting kind of a sophomore slump last year where he's very inconsistent, and now he's moved to a place where he responds the right way. He's still confident regardless of what's going on through the flow of a game. And those guys, they're not there yet, but with him as one of the leaders, they'll get there eventually.
AJ Casey snuck into Evansville. I didn't hear much about him when he got here. Man,
Yeah.
anybody that cares about basketball, and there's a bunch of people, because you guys have sold over 4,000 season tickets, and you're getting a good number at your game still, just like you said about the Salukis. Casey's bringing an element. He's leading you in scoring in conference play. He's getting almost 5 rebounds. In addition to that, David, and maybe I'd like for you to talk a little bit more about him from that standpoint, but when you there's been a saying that Signetti is, everybody's listening to Signetti right now because he's got
No doubt.
stuff,
He's a
right?
guru.
Yeah,
I'm taking notes too.
they're 90 minutes from us, and we're hearing it every day, right?
Yeah.
So he made a really key point, or people are pointing this out when he's taking transfers. He's looking at production over potential. What production did you see when you took AJ?
Yeah, no, that's spot on. I mean, a lot of it was the fact that he's, we're talking about experience and guys that have been there, done that. But he was, and a lot of people forget this because he was a freshman at the time, he was a person that did what we're all trying to do. Went to a Final Four in the NCAA tournament, playing minutes as a freshman. So like he's been in the locker room that has won, that holds one another accountable, that holds himself accountable, that have to communicate with each other to problem solve. So like knowing his background and knowing that, and knowing, at Mean Streets, he wasn't like the quote unquote guy, but he cared more about winning. Same for high school, like he on down the line, everywhere that he's been, the people around those programs all said the same thing. Like he is a hard worker. He prioritizes winning, and he's a really good person that's going to give you everything he has every single day. So when healthy, he could really take off for you. So it's just the quality of person that he is, and the fact that every place he's been, he's won, and he's done that with an unselfish mindset, and put we over me, which a lot of young people and a lot of people in general just have a hard time doing a lot.
David, how important has Casey been to, you mentioned Leif Moeller, guy that came in with a lot of hype, and Evans. I had to chill some people out at lunch back in September about, hey, give this guy a chance to breathe. He's a freshman.
No.
How important has he been in particular to helping Leif kind of get his feet underneath him? It looks like he's really starting to take off.
No, it's been really important. I mean, as you see, neither one of them played great at UIC. Leif had a good amount of turnovers, and AJ wasn't as efficient as he's been from the field. So they when one's playing well, and usually the other one is, and sometimes Leif is not scoring from the field, but his assists are usually assisted to AJ, and they do a good job playing together, just in certain clusters that we have, and certain schemes that we have offensively, that really benefit one another and really benefits our team. So they've really their chemistry is really good, and they gelled well together. I think their IQ of basketball is similar, and they have a true appreciation of one another's game. And they both, people were really like, man, I think, we had, a point guard last year that would score a lot. And when we got Leif, a lot of people were expecting a similar type of mindset. And Leif is a pass first guy. Now he'll score when he needs to, but that's what him and AJ share with one another, is like, they pass first. And I think whenever you're in that mindset and you're trying to give and do what's right for your team, scoring comes with it. But like, if that's not your first instinct, you're just playing the game the right way. And you want more guys like that. And, when you're playing in the game the right way with the right energy, the energy has the ball has a certain energy on its passes, and it leads to quality, efficient shots. But they play well together. They feed off of one another, and they make one another's life a little bit easier on the offensive end.
Coach Ragland, we could talk to you all day, but we'll get you out of here on this note. When you look at your team, look, as when you're in the mix of it each and every day, you guys watch the tape, you go through it, you see all the details, and at times you may feel like you're far ways away, but in all reality, it's really not. You can pinpoint just the small things on a few possessions here or there in these games. What are the biggest things you're communicating to your team to go, look, guys, like if these few things that we can do to flip, you can really see these things take stride here. It's hard to believe we're almost halfway through Valley
Oh,
play here
I
this
know
week.
it is crazy. A lot of it is just controllables. Like transition defense at times have been an issue for us, and sometimes it's from our turnovers. So ball security, playing off your pivots, playing with ball tough, not having pick sixes or catastrophic turnovers is important. Like that's a controllable. You got to want to keep the ball and want to pass the ball and make the right play more than the other team wants to take it away from you. It's a battle of wills. But again, it can lead to the transition points when you turn the ball over. And then, defending and rebounding. But, keeping people in front of you, paint points at times have been an issue, especially the last two games. But, trying to keep people on the perimeter and have them take tough contested long twos or threes, and then trying to limit them to one shot. UIC is really good on the offensive glass. Southern's really good on the offensive glass. There's a lot of similarities in both groups, and you get 11 offensive rebounds against UIC gets 11 on us. Those turn to points. Before you know it, you have 19 points from offensive rebounds. You have 20 points from transition. From us either not getting back or turn the ball over because we had 19 turnovers. And then you end up with 48 paint points. Like that stuff just adds up, and that's stuff that's controllable that we can be better in, and we have been better in, and the times that we play better are in the game. We take care of the ball, we get back in transition to set our half court defense, we keep people in front of us and out of the paint, and then we limit them to one shot. So we have to just have that mindset, and those are things that we can do no matter what. And I do think that this young people do this, teams do this, even pros do this. A lot of people get caught up on the ball going in the basket, and it starts to impact the other things that no matter if the ball is going in or not, you can do all the other things. You can get back in transition. You can communicate and talk. You can keep guys in front of you and guard your yard. You can contest shots. You can block out a rebound. Like you can do all those things regardless if the ball is going in or not. And if we focus on those things and do those things consistently, I feel good about our opportunity to turn our fortunes around.
You brought up Greg Lansing earlier. Do you brag about with Coach Lansing that, man, Coach, like I don't have anywhere near as many gray hairs as you did,
They're starting to sneak in there. He's reminding me, he watched the games. He's like, Rags, I'm starting to see those grays sneak in there. So I got to start darkening my hair or something.
I'm just saying, just brag the good old Coach Lansing. I obviously worked with him at Indiana
Absolutely.
State, and always one of my all-time favorites as well.
He's the best.
This weekend, it will be really good to see you, Coach Ragland. Hope everybody can get to this game safe and sound.
Oh, man, who you telling?
Through this winter storm that's coming through on Sunday. It'll be Sunday at 3:00, and we always look forward to it, brother. Thanks so much for the time, Coach Ragland.
Absolutely. Always great seeing y'all. Look forward to seeing you on Sunday.
Coach Watson, just looking at this game on Sunday, we will have our convo with Coach Ragland. We'll carry the day in terms of the preview for this game on Sunday, but it's no secret. These are two teams that are really desperate in terms of, maybe desperate's not the right word, but I think it is right in this standpoint of two teams that want to get a good feeling back within their locker room, two teams that know They're not as far away as what it may seem at times. It's an important game for both of these teams here on Sunday at Ford Center.
It reminds me a lot of January 1st of 2025 when Southern was needing success and Evansville was needing success. And we heard Coach Ragland talk about one of the obvious strengths that Southern has. They are a very good rebounding team. Consistent, maybe not as much as we'd all like to see. And, no one's as consistent. I mean, you can talk to Oklahoma City. I mean, they've lost 7 games. They want to be more consistent. But what do I make about this rebounding thing? I can guarantee you David Ragland, Craig Snow, all their coaches are really just pumping Evansville, understanding you got to be physical with this team. This is a physical team. They did it a year ago, and we know what the outcome was there. I'm looking for the first ball screen. That's where my eyes are going to be in this game. How Southern handles the first ball screen when there's physicality. And if Southern, they've got to make sure that they live up to their reputation of being physical. That's going to be really critical in this game. The other factor, and I hope it's not crude, I hope I don't offend anybody when I say this, but we used to talk about being a wounded animal and the instincts of a wounded animal in nature. About you're not going to just sit there in the snare and let somebody come eat you. You got to get yourself out of that snare. We're in a snare, and we've got to do something about it. And it's not because we lack a bunch of things. We've got to do something about getting that round ball in the orange ring, and that happens in all phases. It's all interrelated with rebounding and defense and all those things. They all work together.
See how it all comes together on Sunday. Again, right now there have been, as we record this on Friday about midday, there have been no changes to the Saluki game on Sunday. It is still scheduled right now for Sunday at 3 o'clock Central Time, again on the road at Ford Center. If you are going to the game, please be careful on your travels. If you're coming from Carbondale over to Evansville, and even for those, I'm sure with the way the weather, it's looking like could even just make, I joked with Coach Watson saying he's got an easy drive. His drive may not be easy, and he's only about 10, 15 minutes away from downtown there in Evansville. So if you are traveling to the game, and we know this is a game that typically Saluki Nation loves to go to, if you do, please be careful and pay attention to the weather. The team's going in way ahead of it. They're going to go in Saturday morning to make sure that they can get there before the big burst of snow, or at least the scheduled burst of snow, comes in. So if you are going to travel and try to get to the game, just take those precautions and be very careful as you're out and about. And, of course, dress warm too, because it's not just the snow that's coming in. It's going to be a lot of bitter. My walks are getting pretty difficult right now, Coach Watson, with this cold now. So,
Nation, this guy's putting some miles in now. It's not an effort issue. This guy is putting 7 miles in a day, and he's putting me to shame.
I'm trying. I got to keep up with you. So it's amazing. I mean, with your steps. So that's what we try to do here on the Saluki Radio Basketball Podcast. That does it for this edition. And we look forward to recapping the game from Sunday on Sunday for SIU and Evansville. So for the Hall of Famer, Rodney Watson, for Evansville's head coach of the Purple Aces, our friend David Ragland, I am Luke Martin saying so long, Saluki Nation. We will talk to you on Sunday from the Winter Wonderland in Evansville, Indiana. Go Dogs!
This has been Saluki Royalty, the official podcast for Saluki Athletics. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review however you listen. The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Saluki Sports Network.